Okay, so yeah, Cecilia, you were just saying that unbelievable few weeks, no
Yeah.
words, no words. I have cried myself, I've
Yeah.
cried myself to sleep more than one more than one night
Hmm.
over this. Hi Ariel, welcome, welcome, welcome. Um, yeah, it is hi Eric, welcome, welcome, welcome Eric. I'm just
Hi.
trying to think. Um, one thing that might be good is just to let everybody have a minute um, to say how they're feeling about everything. I'm going to see if I can talking about with the killings, with the Floyd, with the Chauvin trial, with the mass murdering, with I mean so many different things. Um, there's so many different things. So I'm gonna go get my dad on the I didn't get a chance to get his computer set up, so I'm gonna set him up really quick. Um, but I have my earphones on. If somebody wants to share and talk, would any Cecilia, would you feel comfortable being first?
Yeah, sure.
All right, hold on 1 second. Let me see if I can hear here. This is the thing you're saying. You know how to get on? Can you hear me, Cecilia?
Yes, I can. Hmm.
Okay, I'm listening. Okay. Um, Give me 30 seconds. I miss what you're saying. Give me 30 seconds. Mhm. Really good if you knew how to do this, Dad. I can't get, oh, here it is. 542, 210, 34. Okay,
Okay.
Dad, Dad. Okay, go for it, Cecilia.
Okay. So, Erica, maybe by now you know what we're talking about. I saw that in your chat. And for anybody who joined late, but we were just talking about the last few weeks. And I mean, it's kind of like you don't even want, I don't want to put a title to it, except it's been an awful last few weeks in terms of the killings. Of course, some of the revelations from the George Floyd trial. So, I mean, when I turned the TV on this morning, the first thing, FedEx mass killing, 8 people killed. And just when Dr. Beth even said it, I mean, it gave me chills again. So I said there for me, there are no words for it except it's just I mean, you could say a lot of things, but it's just don't even want to say unbelievable, but I mean it's the worst of the worst. I mean, how many more, can we stand? And yet here we are again, and it is an evil epidemic for sure. Um and and as Dr. Beth was talking about, crying, I certainly can relate to that. And if anybody can watch any one of these and not feel anything, well, too bad for you, because while I don't like feeling what I feel, but I'd rather feel it than not. But I just, it's just unbelievable. So, um, I have not watched the George Floyd like every day. I mean, I just get a snippet because once they came out and we found out there was longer than what they had anybody knew. And so I've seen a few, you know, clips, but I just, it's like reliving it all over again. That, so there's that. And then, you know, the 13-year-old or the 20-year-old, what, you know, I could just think about is all these families, and it's like you're gonna wake up and say, oh my gosh, is it mine? You know? Um,
Yeah.
so that's just the opening. So anybody else who wants to talk, but I mean, you know, I'm feeling, you know, so anyway, I just it's just hard to believe we live in a country that, and it's us, it's nobody else. It's the United States. Nobody else.
Mhm.
I mean, I've heard, you know, I was listening to some a couple days ago, but nobody else has all this mass pandemonium. I mean, you know, when you have things like the other countries who are killing their, you know, from war kind of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just killing kids. And I mean, I did hear one
With
group of
the
people,
police, with the
yeah,
police,
with
which
the
is,
police that are things that nobody should even be really stopped for, probably. If you're going to stop,
mhm,
there's other ways to deal with these sort of things. And um, it just, it's hard to believe.
yeah,
So I'll let
yeah.
somebody else speak up.
So what I had said was, why don't we each? It has been an incredibly crazy time. I know what a couple of us have been going through physically and personally, as well as what's going on in the world. Um, um, my assistant from the Philippines lost her 40-year-old husband um, last week, and she's in the hospital with COVID, um, and has 14 days, and three of her family members um, are are dealing with COVID, and so there's that in my space right now as well. Um, so that's also hitting me home. So I just want to let everybody kind of just check in. Where are you? How has it been for you personally, with the world, with you personally in the last 3 weeks? And I had said before everybody got here, I have cried myself to sleep um, a couple of nights watching the news and watching some of these Facebook things that, just name after name after name after name after name. It just, it literally makes my heart just ache for, and it doesn't make me not want to watch. It makes me more determined to figure out what I can do. How can I make a difference? So I'm watching everything. I'm aware of everything I can get my hands on, and I'm holding the feelings and holding the pain and attempting to imagine what it would feel like for this to be my family. And having so much love and compassion right now, my heart just feels like it's almost about to crack wide open. Who else wants to check in?
Well, I think
I don't
Mel.
know what to say about it all. I'm kind of like outside in the middle of nowhere right now. Like there's people around me, but I mean, it's heartbreaking, and with everything that's going on, and it's almost unbelievable, but it is believable because it's what's been happening. It's just, I mean, it's my opinion. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's more televised now, and we have phones, we have ways to, like, all this stuff that's going on with, you know, it's like it's always gone on, and people are shocked now because they have to look at it. But we've always been shocked because we knew. Like, and I don't know how to feel about it. It's just craziness. And then to see that, there's been all these like people are protesting and all this stuff is happening, and to see that it's still happening, like what is going through these policemen, like these law enforcement officers' heads? Because I mean, obviously they know, okay, look, you can't do this because these people are being put on trial, these officers, but it's still happening. I don't understand. It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I just want to say one thing though to what Melanie said. A lot of these people are not being put on trial. We're not going to have some correction of anything until it happens. Even the shows that I watch, they talk about it. I mean, you know, because I watch Chicago PD, I watch Law and Order. They even talk about it because a lot of this stuff is coming out. I mean, people are getting pretty real on these TV shows, bringing it all up, you know. But that is the problem. The police, unions, IABs or whatever, and that's not just from watching TV. A lot of people are not being put on trial or even, I mean, there's no court of law. I mean, it's like people are getting off. And so it's unusual that the lady who thought she had a taser, that they actually did something right away. That was very unusual. So I just wanted to make that one step. I don't want to, you know, hog that up, but, and there's some other stuff that goes with that, but that's a big part of the problem.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's true. And it's, you know, I had there was a post that someone posted something, and there was someone on there, and I try and understand all points of view. I try and not understand, but I try and like listen, like, is okay, I'm willing to say that maybe there's something I don't see. Because this lady was like, you know, someone posted this, it was this thing that was written out. I can't repeat it because it was really long, but it was just a guy who was like, before, you know, it was a Black man who had written out this whole thing: before I leave my house, like, I make sure I don't do this. And then he put a name of someone who was killed. Like, I make sure I'm putting my blinker on. I make sure, and then it was all these things. I make sure my kids don't go to the park to play. And then they put a name of somebody who died. And it was just like all of, and it was this long thing. And somebody was like, well, are we forgetting about resisting arrest? And you know, okay. So, I mean, I think here's the thing that's frustrating to me with people. It's like, okay, well, let's say they are guilty and let's say they were resisting arrest. I mean, I don't know, right? I'm not saying every person who died was a great person, but did they deserve to die? Was that, like, is it the police officer's job to be the judge and jury?
Yeah.
And I asked this lady, and I was like, I'm not trying to argue with you. I really want to understand what you're saying. Because it's so frustrating. Like, it's just, like, what are you saying right now? That it's okay because they were guilty? Oh, yes, I'm right here. I have to mute myself. I'll be right back.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. I totally get everything that she's saying about that. And I did see that post. If you guys haven't seen that post, has anybody not seen the post? You didn't see it? You didn't?
I have not. I don't know what you're talking about. And just if we could be more
okay, specific. I'll see if I can go back and find it and share it with everybody and tag everybody. But the gist of it is
by text, and you could send it out if you want to.
Okay, please. Yeah, do that. That'd be great. And it is all these things. And, you know, just like with the little 13-year-old where the police officer said, turn around and show your hands. He turned around and showed his hands and then got shot. 13 showed his hands and then got shot. And, you know, when you've lived the life that when you're not white and you've lived that life, none of us that have not lived that life can understand resisting arrest and fear of getting in the back of a police car, because you get in the back of the police car, that may be the last time you ever get to live. And if you anyway, did you mean to send that to me, Cecilia?
Yes, I said I would send it to you, and then you could posted or whatever. That was
Oh,
the,
oh, oh,
that
oh, oh,
long,
oh, okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, great, great, great. Got it, got it, got it.
Okay.
Okay. So I thought it was something different. I thought it was something different. So who else wants to check in? Just like what's been happening the last 3 weeks. I moved our meeting from last week because I'd gotten my second shot and I wasn't feeling well last weekend. So sorry for moving, and thank you everybody for being willing to show up. Who else wants to check in? Go for it, Doyle.
I continue to be absolutely amazed that all the police departments all over this country haven't taken everybody inside and say, be careful, treat people with respect on all things. Don't just react. I'm
And who
really
knows? And who knows if they have? Who knows if they have or haven't? I don't know. But whatever they're doing, it's not working.
correct. It is whatever, you're right. Whatever it is they're doing isn't working for, I mean, it's almost an epidemic. I know it's been there, but at least the press is now highlighting it so that maybe we can finally make a difference for everybody.
And Doyle, how has it impacted you personally? Have you watched anything? Has
Yes,
anything been going on for you?
I watch it a variety of reasons. One, I hope that the publicity, does start to make a difference. But two, I don't want to be uninformed and just bury my head in the sand. I think I watch things that aren't scurrilous in, the various networks tend to promote more of the exaggerations on both sides, on both the left and the right. And I want to try and stay as close to what the real story is, so that, it's not blown out of proportion, and yet it also needs to be blown out of proportion, but correctly. Not ways that prejudice people one way or the other. Let's simply accept what's going on and let's work to make changes.
Yeah. Thanks, Doyle. Who else wants to check in? Go for it. Go for it, Eric.
Yeah. So for me personally, I have not really been watching the news that much. I am aware of what's going on with the latest shootings in the trial. And so sort of on a peripheral level, I'm aware. I'm just not as engaged. And people have said, it's unbelievable. And it's like, it's not unbelievable to me. I'm maybe a little shocked, but not surprised, because this is just a pattern that just keeps happening and happening and happening. Until somebody is held accountable, it's going to keep happening, and I wouldn't be surprised if Chauvin gets off,
Right.
like he did not have the intent to murder this person, but it should be an open and shut case. But the way the judicial system works and, the police unions and all this stuff, and even all those other officers in that case should be held accountable. They could see that George Floyd was dying. They should have done something about it, but that's not the way the police system works. Nobody's being held accountable. And so it's just going to keep happening and happening until the problem is the systemic problem. It's an institutional problem. Until the institutions change, the outcomes are not going to change. And so it's a mindset that has to be, everybody has to do the same thing, instead of like the bad apple syndrome or whatever. It's like everybody has to know this is unacceptable. We cannot allow this to happen. And if it does happen, we have to hold these people accountable. So it's just not surprising. And it's just a real shame. And it's very, very sad and tragic that it keeps happening. But it's been happening for centuries in this country until things change at a systemic level. That's when, to me, it's going to be surprising that, oh my God, things have changed. And part of it is we have to have more conversations. It has to be a society-wide kind of thing. Like the protests are one thing, but it has to come from the policy level, you know, and things have to change at the highest levels. Until that happens, this is going to continue. So it's like, I wouldn't be surprised if we see it again next week. And it's a terrible tragedy that is unavoidable. It's avoidable, but until somebody starts doing something about it, it's not going to change. So anyway, that's just some thoughts.
Thanks, Eric. Who else wants to check in? Go for it, Ariel.
I don't know if I shared this on an earlier call, and if I did, forgive me, but I just keep having a powerful memory of something that I heard the Dalai Lama say in a talk recently within the last 3 to 4 weeks. And many of the mayors from different areas, governors, mayors, and other area leaders were given the opportunity to ask His Holiness questions. And a lot of people began to ask about what about this violence and what about this, you know, this horrible racism, like what are we going to do? Help us out, Dalai Lama, right? And I just can't shake this, the answer that he said. He said, it's so much better, and that's what we need to focus on. And I thought, wow, that's really kind of dismissing a lot of things, but energetically, I do see that you want to focus on what's changed, not what is not working. And he said, the people that you're seeing, or the people that are coming out of the woodwork, or the ones that are appearing violent, or the ones that are, you know, these atrocities that we're looking at, those are the people that have not yet developed self-love. And then in, you know, Dalai Lama style, he starts giggling. And at first I was kind of offended by his answer, and I thought, oh my gosh, he's just belittled what is going on. But then energetically, when I was looking at it, he is right. It's so much better. I mean, you only have to look at advertising and television from generations before us, and it's like, what? I can't even believe some of the things that were going on. So I'm not saying that I'm not looking at the violence or what's going on, but I'm trying to really focus on how things are changing and embracing the fact that things are changing. And we have to look at what's messed up before things change, right? So I'm trying to reframe this for myself. By the way, I'm recovering from surgery, so if I'm still anesthesia head, give me a little break here. But to make it an opportunity, be outraged, be angry, and let's gather like this so that we can have an opportunity for awakening, right? And really start changing things, and just instead of being in the incohesive. Okay, I'm gonna have to get a little bit new agey, but the incohesive brain waves, the discordant energy of hate, and really focus on it's so much better and things are changing, and be in the cohesive, more harmonic brain waves and energy. Sorry if that doesn't resonate with anybody. It's the best way that I can describe.
No, I totally get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. I just want to concur with what you're saying, Ariel. I teach
Cool.
that. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want.
Don't want. Yes, exactly what I exactly.
It's a yes and. Give everybody permission to be enraged, give everybody permission to feel their feelings, and
because once they feel heard,
and focus on what we want. And
because
focus
once
on
they feel
what we
heard,
want.
then we can start to change, like something different can happen. Anyway, so at first I almost thought the Dalai Lama let me down there for a moment, and then I really sat and brought that inside and thought about what he was saying. And I don't think that he was simplifying the matter. I think that he was saying that we're at a breaking point, and it's something better is coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
I
that's
am,
my
I'm-
2 cents.
I'm holding that with you, Ariel, the yes and. Erica, Dad, you want to check in?
I could say a couple of things. I think that the common denominator seems to me to be guns. And I have been thinking a lot about this because my adopted son, we got him when he was about 4 years old. His mother went to prison for manslaughter, killed a person on the highway. And we had Zach from age 4 to off and on through his teenage years. And so he had a kind of a rough beginning, and he began in the projects and so on. So that defines a little bit of where he's coming from. But now he's 20, what, Beth? 21, 2, something like that. Is that right? And he is living in Arkansas. And Zach buys and sells guns. And we talk often. He sees me as a father figure, and he calls me about every other day. And he's always so proud of any gun that he buys. And I'm sitting here thinking, oh my goodness gracious, that's about the last thing in the world I want to see or hear about or know. And when he calls my wife, Barbara just says, Zach, I can't handle this. And she just hangs up on him, or at least did once or twice. But he was telling me last night about how the pawn shops carry the guns so much for the most part. And he was telling me that this particular pawn shop had in its store several thousand weapons 2 years ago. That was the place to go and get them. And yesterday he said they had 5. They had 5. And he said, it's just amazing, Granddad. He called me Granddad. He said, just amazing how so many people are buying them. And he said, the only reason I'm selling them is I can make good money. He said, I'm not trying to create a problem, but he said, I can make real good money. Of course, he says, he's the first one to say, you can make the same argument for selling drugs, hello. But it's scary. We're talking about the heal the hate. It's scary. It's not just a matter of philosophy here. We're talking about it's life and death. And it kind of reminds. I'm a Western fan. I like old Western movies. I grew up with them, and so I still look at them from time to time. Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, and all those great people. But it was kind of a game. You saw the difference between real world and what was on the screen. But today it's real, and you begin to wonder, should we get to a place where we start telling people to turn their guns in when they go to places, wherever they are? I mean, a lot of churches are now recommending that if you have a gun, bring it to the service, and so that we won't be caught unarmed. And a lot of people are taking them into all kinds of locations. I had dinner with a young lady some time ago, and we were talking a little bit about this, and she said, I carry a pistol. And all of a sudden it just kind of went all over me. I started thinking, good night, you look so fragile, and here you've got a little pistol in your purse here. And it is crazy, because any of us are prone to get upset from time to time. Any of us can get mad or frustrated at a particular thing. And boy, that's an opportunity to show your rage or your anger or your frustration. And police live in that world.
Or afraid.
Right.
And misunderstand. It's hurt and fear.
That's why all these people are buying guns. I mean, you are so right about the common denominator. Again, when I said the US of A, we're the only ones that everybody has a gun. I mean, I don't, but I'm saying people have so many guns. People and then we have the fear mongers that just make you go buy more guns. And I mean, the gun sales the last couple of years are off the chain. And so, but you get some craziness or whatever, it gives people false, oh, I got a gun, I'll just shoot you, you know. And so instead of trying to think about something good or whatever, I mean, I don't know what these people think about when they get in the car, whether it's a police person or anybody. Oh, I got my gun. First thing you think about is going out of the house with your gun. So, you know, what's your mindset anyway? If you do come across something that just might tweak you a little bit or just doesn't sit right with you. I mean, I heard a situation today. I'm not going to go into it, but it's just like, wow, people go off for the least little thing. So
it seems like it's fear.
It is fear.
But it's also I feel like it's the media, and maybe not the media, but it's like a portrayal, because if you think about it, I mean, I always remember watching this dude at Walmart, and he was a Caucasian individual, and he had like some sort of semi-automatic weapon. I don't know anything about guns, so I can't tell you what kind. And he was in the Walmart, like flipping out, shooting off his gun. I don't know that he hurt anybody, but the cops came to get him. And he went into the car without a scratch on him. And that always sticks in my head, because I think to myself, is it that they're genuinely more afraid of more melanated individuals? Like, I'm not going to only say, I mean, and so it's almost as if there is there's a fear there. I don't believe all of them are just hateful. Maybe some of them are. I believe that there is that racism, but I do believe that there's a certain amount of fear, more fear, when they see somebody with a darker complexion, and more fear that this person might try and hurt them, and they have to be more on alert and have the gun out. Because I mean, I've watched videos of people getting stopped, and the differences. Like, I try not to notice that. I try really hard, because I try and tell myself it's gotten better, right? Like, it's gotten better. Has it? Or is it hidden?
I don't know about that, but anyway.
Is it hidden? Is it hidden, or has it gotten better?
Because
there's still that fear.
Right, yeah.
I still see that fear, and it's a difference, because I've seen certain people who can, like, why are you pulling me over? What is this about? And then, you hear those people who are like, well, if the guy would have just, listened and been more respectful towards the cop, it would have been different. But if there are cases where you see this happening and it's a different skin tone to the person, like, I don't want to sit there and say it's only white people and white people can get away with whatever, because I'm sure there are shootings that involve white people as well. But it's the fact that it's just so many. And is it just that they're televising it more? Are we not seeing all of the people who are not, like, all of the white people who are getting shot? Are there white people as well? Like, I don't want to segregate, but are there? And is it not being televised? And is the media making us more angry by just showing all the black people and the brown people and that are getting shot? Or is it really this bad that they're just taking us out left and right? I mean, that part I try not to think about it too much, because I want to believe that, people are getting better. But sometimes when I'm looking at this and I'm seeing these, I don't watch the news.
Yeah.
I think there are two kinds of shootings. One is the mass shooting, which is indiscriminatory. I mean, it could be anybody. And then there are the well-defined shootings where it appears that a policeman is shooting a black person more than anybody else. So it looks like there are two kinds of shootings that are occurring, at least two. I don't know, maybe more.
Well, I think you make a really good point, Melanie. You were cutting out, so I muted you because we couldn't hear what you were saying. So I muted you. So when you're back to a place where you can hear again, I think I think there's and Ariel, you're muted too. It looks like you've been saying a couple of things. We didn't hear what you said, but I think there's a couple of things. We do have what we're seeing, and we do have what we look for. And if you look for fear, you find fear. And if you look for healing, you find healing. Like when I was watching all of the different riots or the protests, or depending upon what you call it, a riot or a protest. And there were lots of white people, lots and lots of white people in the group, which made me feel so hopeful. That makes me feel hopeful. And the other thing that, I think it is such a beautiful thing that there's so much visibility. I watch a lot of MSNBC, and there's the black suppression, but it's also suppressing all poor people. And, like I saw somebody that said white lives matter, and it's almost pitiful. It's almost sad to me that somebody has to put up a sign that says white lives matter, because they're just telling on themselves. They're saying, I don't feel like I matter either. And I think there are many, many, many of us that are in pain and that are hurting. And, Dad, when you're talking about Zach, a lot of the things is driven by money. Like I watch the Republicans and the Democrats and the corporations. A lot of the stuff is driven by money. And are we willing to have a world of peace and not and be willing to lose some of the money? Because I've been thinking a lot about this, and I don't have the particular example in mind, but start looking at it. Where are we, each and every one of us? Where are we in fear? Where are we in hate? Where are we choosing ourselves over others? And in order for every single one of us to matter, it may mean that some of us have to be willing to, I'll give you an example. All the people that are coming in the border, like, we may have to eat less so that some people outside of the United States can eat more. We may have to share our houses or send some of our tax dollars or some of our money to other countries, because we're not going to have walls big enough to protect ourselves. So it's either, the water goes all over the planet. How do we all get our water? The air goes all over the planet. We all get the same air. There has to be a way that we learn how to live together without using a big gun or a big stick or fear or hiding mine and hoarding mine when other people are starving absolutely to death. That's what causes the hate. Go ahead, Cecilia. Oh, you unmuted.
Because Erica hadn't said anything, and so I will gladly yield if you want to say something, Erica, because you haven't said anything. But okay, it's hard when you got so many things going on. But I wanted to go back to a point Ariel started with the Dalai Lama, and then kind of share something to kind of answer what you just said, Dr. Beth. So when I first started talking, I said, well, I haven't been watching everything, and what I should have said in depth. What I try to do is watch a little to know what's going on right now, because right now I'm trying to hold myself in a certain space, which I'll explain that. And then even though I sort of took umbrage at first when the words first came out about what the Dalai Lama said, but that's the whole thing that I'm working on is, okay, you might have a reaction at first, but hear it out. And once I heard it out, it got better, in terms of, yes, things are getting better, because I find myself doing that with other people who said, nope, it's hopeless, nope, cancel, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. No, just think. again, I've used the people who have supported all the causes, and you know, and I don't want to, let's not forget about the Asian thing. I mean, come on, because I mean, that
Oh,
was
yeah. Oh,
it's too
yeah.
sickening for me. I mean, we could have added that to the thing, because I actually wrote something and posted about that because it was just so horrible that, you know, we got people watching this and nobody's helping. So
Yeah.
it starts with each of us. And so I'm supposed to be speaking at my last place of employment on this is Diversity Month. And so they'd asked me about it, and I said, yeah, sure. And then, so I get this email, well, what are you going to talk about? I'm like, oh, now I got to think about what I'm going to talk about, right? And I mean, I have lots of thoughts and minds and, you know, all about that, but I really now, no kidding, had to think about it as to what I'm going to say. So for the past week and a half or so, as I'm preparing for this, it's like the end of the month, I start writing about my journey along this line. And it includes part of what we're doing here. And that is, you know, you've heard me use the words before, mindful and intentional. Everything has to start with me first, because I can't change anybody else, but I can change me. And
Yep.
it is, Dr. Beth, as you said, to look at, you know, where am I with the hate or the fear or money or politics or whatever. So while I feel like I'm a lot more open than a lot of people, but I do have my biases, but I start, you know, doing my own report card, because I need to work out those things within me so I can have a conversation. And that's really what I think, because at the end of the day, I mean, what it starts with me is, you know, we're all humans. I mean, everything is around, we're all humans. And then I personally, it's really and truly, I mean, the evil's going to be there, because that's what the world is. If you don't have, you know, if you don't have, you know, I don't even want to say, because everybody has a different spiritual realm about it. I know what mine is, but having the spiritual walk that I am paying attention to, because, you know, I could say all that and not, but my whole thing is to be mindful and intentional every day. And so if I hear something on TV or somebody says something, you know, I want to check the temperature. You know, I got to check mine. I got to check the other person's temperature. Now, the only thing I would say about anybody saying that about things are getting better is, one, I need to hear what somebody is saying, because you could say that to the wrong person. Probably saying that to a Black person, you're probably not going to feel that way holistically. Because at the end of the day, I'll just use, you know, Dante Wright. You know, at the end of the day, his mother doesn't want to hear that. Her son's gone, and his child is not going to have a father. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? At that point in time. And a lot of people really don't want the big picture. They want the picture that's in front of them. And so when we talk to people, we have to realize, no matter what, that people are hurting. And some of us have a deeper empathy quotient than others. Some have none. But for those who are trying to carry that hurt, you know, with others, and how do we share that so people will actually stop and think and listen and look at themselves? So anyway, what I've determined is that I'm developing my DEI avatar. And that is to say, I am developing who I am that has to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it hurts everybody. It hurts everything. It's more than killing somebody. It is, no kidding. I heard something and I'm sad about it. I feel bad about it. I mean, so much so that I have an opinion about everything I've heard, you know? And so, but what do you do with it? And so I started kind of breaking that up into chunks. So when I say what I'm reading or not listening to, it's, you know, what documentaries do I listen to? What am I reading? What am I watching? Who am I talking to? which again, here's a repair. And what is the truth about what I'm hearing and, talking, or what do I do with it? And so, if I was queen for a day, we'd all do that. We'd all develop our own DEI avatar, which of course starts with looking at everybody as a human being first and foremost, and treating everybody. And, that's the panacea of everything. And of course, we wouldn't do the things that we do. We wouldn't react. We wouldn't pull out a gun instead of a taser. We wouldn't make a big thing about, oh, you got a warrant. First of all, the boy didn't get the warrant. It's just so many things. So that it's, as we talk about these things, that's my game plan for having, trying to work through these. But it's not only having to work through these, because everybody who says something to me, a friend, a family member, what am I saying back to them as a mirror to try to help somebody through what we're going through? Because if you're not going through it, you definitely are, I don't know, making some money somewhere, and you're all focused on money, or you got your head up on the rock, because today it's just out there in front of you, and you can hardly avoid it.
Right.
So.
Everywhere. True that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Erica. And then Eric.
Okay. So I had a chance to take the bystander training with iHolla Back, and that was really helpful to get like a mindset game plan for if ever I'm in a place where I, and some of the stuff I think I already know, but it was very helpful to come up with those they gave you 5 Ds for what to do if you're witnessing a hate crime. Now, if there's guns, you might not really have a lot of time, but I found it was very helpful. And the gun situation you just don't really have a lot of time to slow things down. Like, that's the problem with guns, right? There's no thinking. It's just response, react, not response, react. But the 5 Ds that I just wanted to say them out loud, and I actually took screenshots of the talk. It was very simple, 1 hour training. But the 5 Ds were delegate, distract, direct, delegate, distract, direct, document. There was one other one.
I had this some time ago. I don't know, de-escalate but I know what you're talking about, because I did have this myself.
And then it was really interesting because in the training they give different scenarios, and then everyone got to vote on which of the 5 Ds they would do. And so it'll come to me. But that was really helpful. And so when the Dalai Lama says things are getting better, so I translate that to mean I translate that, what he means by that maybe is in the media, is in our video and movies, and in like on Broadway, we're seeing a more culturally diverse casting. Like, really, that's what I think he means by that. Well, we've seen, like, I wonder what his thinking is for like, oh, things are getting better. And
we should have specifics is all I'm saying. I would never make such a broad statement like that without some specifics. You're right. We don't know.
I think it's probably that he means, people are more aware, people are paying attention, and it is getting it to a certain degree. It's gotten better because I think we're talking. I think when we were just saying, like, being able to discuss differences in opinions, just even people who think, oh, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, the Black Lives Matter, like, it should, like, they're not, it doesn't mean that they're saying it's okay for all of this to happen, or for there to be hate crimes. And you're right. I mean, I hadn't even, like, when we were talking about it, I hadn't even thought about all the Asian people who are having like all this hate thrown at them. I actually, like, there was a family on my Facebook, and this poor lady got maced, but her daughter and her 18-month-old son, just because they were Asian, and because people were being hateful towards Asian people, no reason. She said, oh, their little dog came at her. It was like a little dog, I guess. I don't know what happened. But the point is, they maced them. They maced a woman and her 2 kids. So like, there's all this hate going on. And I think the fact that if we could, like, you know, if people start talking about what is going on, I think the discussion is so important. And people right now are just, they want to be on one side or the other. They don't want to listen. And I think that part is important. And we're starting to open the dialogue. And then maybe that's what he means. Because at one point it was like nobody wanted to talk about it. And people were afraid because they're like, okay, if you go on, I'm watching something right now about it's a show, but it was just, every time I watch a show where it's like Black people in like the 60s, or when there was still a little bit of racism, they were able to move in, like they were able to move into I think it was like Compton, when it was like mostly white people there, and like all the stuff that happened to them and the things that would go on. And it's like, now that's not okay. I mean, there's still little things, it's maybe underhanded, like things that happen, but we have come a long way. So maybe that's what he was saying. Like there's more awareness. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out and process it all. I mean, it's just.
I think you're right, Melanie. I think exactly what you were saying, and that's what I was saying earlier about, like, we don't have segregated schools any longer. We don't have, colored drinking fountains. Oh my God, that I never saw that in my generation. That blows my mind when I see that in media and stuff. I can't believe that. There are things in the generations past, I think, that, I mean, like, I can't fathom. But I don't think anybody can fathom people walking around with guns and shooting people like it's the Wild West or something. It's crazy. In my neighborhood, there is a lot of Asian hate crimes going on. So that's what I'm faced with in my reality here. There's a lot going on here about that. Anyway.
I would say that things, and as an 83-year-old person, it was normalized to see a Black-white drinking fountain. It was normalized in my growing up years for Blacks to sit at the back of the bus. It was normalized. I never even thought about it. I just thought that's what you do. And we had Black and white schools, and on the list goes. It's an atrocity. They couldn't go in these restaurants and this and that and the other. I mean, you can make a list of it and we'd all just say, oh my goodness. And on the flip side, I could see some real positive things. I mean, the idea that we've had a Black president, for crying out loud. I mean, that's beyond words. And then if you look at the House of Representatives, particularly on the Democratic side, you see women, you see Blacks, you see Asians, you see all kinds of folks, you see gays in the cabinet. And so, you can look at that and you say it's so much better. However, all it takes is one mass shooting, and the news gets it out there so quick, and it's so big that all of a sudden all of that improvement seems to just fade away. And I will admit, you start getting real paranoid yourself. You start thinking, maybe I should stay in all day today, maybe I shouldn't drive out in that area. Maybe I shouldn't even get in the car, and it's the news is very effective, So I think we're kind of looking at apples and oranges here too. I think that there is some stuff that's happening better. It's got to be better.
It is, yeah. It is.
It's the news of all these then gets used by the various ideologues to spread fear. I mean, the NRA says, oh, the Democrats are going to take your guns away. So then everybody goes and buys more guns. The left makes just as equal claims to make everybody fear that the conservatives are going to do something awful to them. so that, we then start to get into these small little blocks that keep us from thinking straight. If you buy the idea that everything is bad, then you start to buy the solutions that each of these groups are trying to get put in place. Guns for everyone, guns in grammar school. That there has to be a certain element of common sense that
The common sense goes out the window when fear comes in. Like
Correct.
logic leaves when the amygdala takes over.
But that's why I say each of us has to be responsible for what we individually do. If there are enough, each of us doing these things, I mean, just because everybody, that don't mean I have to buy into it. That doesn't mean I have to go
Right.
along with it. And, and people who say that, I'm sorry, for some people, okay, you let your mind be twisted like that. You allowed yourself to give into that. You don't have enough sense to know that couldn't possibly be true. Too much.
Yep.
Yesterday I saw, it was on the news that as first time I thought, oh, there's a novel idea. But anyway, they're trying to get people, white extremists, where it's kind of like deprogramming them. They were turned a certain way, but they haven't, they're going through these things of changing them back to being normalized, but where they just got caught up doing Facebook, and, they were having problems in the family. The wife's like, oh my gosh, I don't know my husband anymore. But anyway, so they're having groups that are working with people like this. So the thing is, that's why it's just so important. And if you see it, or if somebody in your household, to try to, reel them back in or whatever. So if we want to talk about an epidemic, that's one that, is going out there. This one man was talking about, his 3-year-old, because children grow up if they're seeing that. But children, there's an excuse for children, but not unless you're mentally ill. We sort of buy into what we want to buy into. So we have to, that's why it's an individual choice. We all have choices.
Go ahead, Erica.
I want to share too. but
And
go ahead.
Wait,
Eric,
Somebody else can go.
Eric was going to go next. Erica, and then you go after Erica. Eric,
Eric.
go for it.
Eric first, Erica next.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So yeah, I love everything that's been shared. I could talk a lot about guns, and first of all, guns are not going away because we are a fear-based society, and that's what is generating so many guns. It's not creating more safety, it's creating more violence. But I want to go back to what the Dalai Lama said. I love that Ariel brought that up, because that's who he is. That's his nature. He's always going to see the positive. He was exiled from his own country. He's the last real Dalai Lama. If there's anybody who should be angry, it's him, but he's never said anything against China. So that's just who he is. So I like to think that I am a hopeful and positive person, but I'm also a realist. So I would love to see change, but I also see that change is not happening. And so I get frustrated by it. One thing, I think the best thing that happened last year from my perspective, and it was a really rough year for so many people, but the Black Lives Matter was so inspiring because so many people came out of all races and all ages to protest what was happening.
yes.
And that, to me, is how change happens.
That's right. Yes.
Enough people do that, and there was millions of people, but if there was hundreds of millions of people who protested, I guarantee change would have happened. So to me, it's like people know when something is wrong. And if enough people protest or have conversations about it and demand change, that's where it's going to happen. But just not enough things changed. You look at the gun law, if you see the mass shootings and, like the Sandy Hook, for example, little children getting killed, nothing changed. No gun laws changed. It's too powerful. But if enough people demanded change, like millions upon millions of people said enough is enough,
right.
That is going to create change. And that's why these conversations are so important at the biggest scale possible. Because again, it's institutional what is happening, and people are they're I think they're so narrow-minded in their point of views, you know, at the highest levels, and they're in denial about things that they refuse to actually admit that there's anything wrong. And so nothing's going to change if people in politics or business leaders don't see the problem. So anyway, there's a lot that we can go on and on about all these subjects, but it's just, to me, it's just tragic that not enough people are demanding change. You know, and some people probably like, we've done what we can and it's still not happening, so I'm not going to do any more. But if you look at the civil rights movement, enough people demanded change, and so change happened. Or if you look at India, enough people demanded that the British leave, and so that happened. So it's all, to me, it's almost like a numbers game. You have to have a paradigm shift. A certain number of people have to demand change for it to actually happen. So, and you know,
And it's like the 99th monkey, internally
Yeah.
and externally. Go ahead, Erica.
I can't remember what I was gonna say, so I don't remember what was the thread before. I really like what's happening right now, but I forgot what I was gonna say, so I don't remember. But
You gotta quit folding clothes.
I appreciate I appreciate the conversation. What was I gonna tell
It's
you?
okay. It'll come back and jump back in there.
Well, quick question.
One
What are you thinking?
what wait a minute, Dad.
Okay.
I'll throw it back to you in 1 second. One of the things that I would challenge us is a lot of this conversation is global. A lot of this conversation is out there. A lot of this conversation is the media. And I think everything you're saying, Eric, I 100% agree. And it's easy to, it's like this little starfish matters. It matters to this starfish. And, I'm willing to find it in my neighborhood with my people, with I look for places in my experience to find ways to reach out and to connect and to show that I care. Go ahead, Dad. Sorry.
Well, you may have thrown cold water on my question because my question is, who are the voices today in the United States that have the kind of influence for peace, for love, for lack of fear, et cetera, other than Martin Luther King? And his influence is still great, of course, but he's not alive. Who are
Stacey Abrams?
Do you think so?
Stacey Abrams is, oh yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
yeah.
She's one.
But it's a lot of people. Going back to Eric's comment, so basically most people know me as somewhat of I can be very clear, definite about what I speak, but I am an eternal optimist. Because if I can't live with hope, I just may as well throw up my hands. So doesn't mean that I don't, I learned this years ago, it's just hopeless. So again, words matter. The psyche of it's hopeless versus no, I'm hopeful. It's everybody. At the end of the day, what Eric said is so true. The best thing to me that came out last year is exactly what you said about Black Lives Matter, because it wasn't just the United States, people all over the world were together, a lot of people. And some people, it might've been a passing thing, but for a lot of people, it's not. And every day, we can get caught up on the negative and awful things that are happening, but there's so many positive things that are happening in terms of exposure. I believe that the exposure is just tremendous. As I look on the other streaming services. I'm like, well, where have all these shows been? You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, they didn't. I mean, everybody is putting together documentaries that people can learn something from. I know they're not just Black people looking at these. You know what I'm saying?
I've been looking at them.
Yeah.
I've been looking at them every night, learning so
right.
much.
And so just the words soul of the nation. So, you know, the words themselves, well, what does that mean? It's like, you know what? Everything to me right now is on Front Street. It's open. It's kind of like you can get on board or you can just put your hands over your ears because I don't think it's going away. And so that's the good thing. And and you know, for a lot of people, it's too much, you know, but that's because when you try to take 400 years and try to open it all up in a year, you know what I'm saying? You take what I'm kind of get the big picture, but there's a lot that a lot of people never knew. There's a lot of things that I didn't know.
Is.
But for all the things that I
so
did
true,
know,
Cecilia.
you know, and so again, everybody cannot just hear or keep the TV turned off or not see it somewhere, even though some of it is driven by money. That's okay, you know, if that's what it takes, you know, to continue to get our dollars, well, so be it. I say everything except for the politics, voting rights, you know, I'm like, I'm not buying into that, but it's how voting rights thing's going to turn out is like, you know what, people are not going to give up. I think the moment is people are not going to give up and give in. So I think it's everybody. And Bill, I just have to tell you, I am so pleased that, because my time, you know, I didn't necessarily grow up in Mississippi, but because my dad was in the Air Force, I spent a lot of time in Mississippi, Jackson. And so to have a person that you can share and be who you are versus, you know, you could have been somebody else, you know, and to share, you know, full exposure. You are sharing with us. You're sharing some things that other people haven't heard. And so everybody's got a story. I think that people are getting something out, and, you know, later people may not say anything at the time, but you just kind of go back, you know, home, or maybe you'll think about it later, or maybe you'll see a situation and you'll say, oh, I should say something. And the other thing, I think, like, I don't know if we're ever going to get to microaggression or unconscious bias, but the thing is, each person, you could have a conversation with a friend, associate, wherever, and you can hear them say something, and you could say, okay, what did you mean by that? Do you realize that might hurt somebody's feelings? Did you think about what you just said? That's what everybody can do. So, Stacey Abrams is doing a whole lot, but she got a lot of people right there with her too, because she can't do it by herself. And she, you know, so, but we all have things to do that we can be doing. Yeah. Even in the grocery store. I mean, you know, talking to strangers or whatever. For me, every day is when I go out, I have to think about, well, I had to do it before anyway. Well, I did it anyway, because you are on front. We feel like we're, oh my gosh, somebody's looking or whatever. But now it's a different thing. One, you know what, if you want to have a conversation, I'm going to have a conversation with you, but it might be a different conversation. It's to be more open, to invite the conversation. So. And
anytime we hear somebody talking smack about somebody and how they're reacting inappropriately, like Melanie was saying about being rebellious or being, you know, when you get shot for putting your hands in the air, you learn not to put your hands in the air. You learn to keep running. Like when you have stories like that. Erica, you were going to say something?
So can we imagine this country having like a gun buyback? You know, some other countries they've done away with guns, and it's been very successful. And I know there's going to be like the whole like Second Amendment people. They'll be like the last adopters. to give back their guns or to get, you know, to have their guns, but is it possible for us, this pod, to think of what would it be like without the guns? Like,
There
and
have been cities that have done that, Erica. They really, there are cities that have done that.
which cities in this country?
Chicago,
Denver.
Philadelphia have had, yeah, there are a lot of cities, but you're never going to get, I mean, now that's the one thing I will say, you're never going to get rid of the guns.
Then really only the criminals are going to have the gun. Only the bad guys are going to have the guns because
That's
it's
fair.
right.
I think
That
that's
doesn't sound like a
that's
good
the big
idea.
question. Somebody's gonna have guns. So when we say get rid of guns, do we mean even our military? Like, what are we saying when we say that? Is
Well,
that
that's just
everybody?
that you're
Are we
exactly
getting rid of
right.
all guns?
Yeah, right.
So,
So-
like, you know, because I'm a little conspiracy theorist, but I'm not super worried. But the point is, like, a lot of people, why they feel like they need to have guns is because they're like, okay, well, you know, you never know what could happen. There could be a civil uprising and whatever, and they want to have guns. So how do we appease everybody? And how do we make it so that everybody would be okay with that? I mean, there are places, I heard, is it Switzerland or Sweden? The police don't have guns. I can't remember where it is. It's somewhere in that realm.
90% of the UK policemen don't have guns.
UK, they
Yeah.
don't have guns. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm like, okay, I'm down. Is it gonna be gone completely, or are there just specific people who will have guns? You know? And so I guess that's the question we have to ask. I mean, I know that guns are definitely the biggest issue between the mass shootings and just even if we take away all of like any of that, like I grew up in an area where people were getting shot left and right. This was our own people shooting our own people. Okay, so I mean, like it's just like, get it. How will we do that, and how will we stop the black market and the people who are criminals and getting guns illegally? I mean, it's just it's a big issue. So I am curious, like, what everybody's thoughts on that
Well,
would be.
Before Erica, I'll come to you in 1 second. Before we go completely down the gun route, one of the ways I'm playing is if you have a whole bunch of tools, like I have a lot of people that work with me that one's Republican, one's Democrat, parents, kids, one family called the police, 4 different families called the police in 1 month. I mean, 1 week, the same week, 4 different families had hurt each other physically. What I know is that when we have other tools, we don't have to use violence. When
Right.
we have ways to stop the fear, then we don't have to worry about taking the guns. We have other tools. Go ahead, Erica.
So you remember how they had like the hypodermic needles exchange, where people could exchange in their hypodermic needles for clean ones. I just have this, you know, like maybe this is something that we can't even envision now, but one day it's something that, you know, that really helped to cut down on the AIDS epidemic spread, is like, so people couldn't shoot up the same needles and spread, you know, HIV with the hypodermic needles for heroin.
Yeah.
And so it's like sort of like way out the box thinking that isn't that way out the box, because other places are doing this. Yeah, like something bigger for even the gangsters and the people, you know, who are used, even not only gangsters, like the NRA proud gun owners, like Texans, they love their guns and they carry them proudly regularly. I don't know how they travel in airports, but they said they always have something. My friend Kathy, she's a daughter of the American Revolution, and she's like, oh, us Texans, we always have something. I don't know what that exactly means, but so that was one thought I wanted to like just put in the mix. And then, did any of you see, this is a little bit off, sidebar from that, did anybody see the Saturday Night Live sketch, Will You Take It? Will you take the vaccine? The game show that they do for the guy to convince his family to take the vaccine. So it was a fascinating twist to see that. So if I could find the link, I want to share it with y'all. But it's fascinating to see the Black community. Many people are not up for the vaccine for different reasons. And anyway, many people are not up for the vaccine, but so there you go.
in
That's
in all communities too.
Yeah.
And can we create openness and safety for people to be who they choose to be? Like, how do we be how do we create love and compassion for somebody that's scared to death? And I may be completely self-righteous in whichever side I'm on. How do we create a space where we can care about each other, have open conversation without being afraid we're going to step on each other's toes? I was just working with a husband and wife that have been married for a long time, and they have so many assumptions about each other. And the assumptions that they are making about each other are causing the entire passion to die down. And when we can start to be willing to listen and to get curious without assuming, well, you're white, you think that. Well, you're Black, you think that. Well, you're young, you think that. Well, you're old, you think that. Well, you're gay, you think that. Well, you're Republican, you think that. Because I know lots of Republicans that don't think like Trumplicans.
I think you know what's the funny thing, and I this is like completely, I don't know. I think that all of it has to do with us remembering that, like, if we start working on ourselves each individually, and once when we're doing that, it spreads. I know it sounds woo-woo and like new agey, but it's so true, because when you're confident in yourself, when you're like, you don't allow all these things to shake you. You can feel whatever comes, but you're like, okay, well, wait a minute, where is this coming from? Like, I think we've forgotten to do that because it's so busy and we're dealing with bills and life and the concrete jungle, and we no longer so I think it's actually, yes, as a whole we have to come together, but as individuals need to start getting back to that place of going within and understanding where these fears are coming from. And I guess the question is, how would that even happen? How do we get people to do something like that? To realize
the question is, how do we
it's
get
always
ourselves?
An inside job. Well, yeah. Well, we're doing it. I'm doing it.
Okay, we're almost at a wrap. How about if we take everybody, give your final words, and Ariel, you start.
Well, that's exactly what Melanie was just saying. That's exactly it that the Dalai Lama was saying about self-love and really knowing your own inner terrain. I think that's what the takeaway message there, and having and arming people with techniques to tickle their amygdala and to get out of that sort of flight or fight state, so that they can really observe things instead of going into that reactionary mode. So I don't know, carrying around big feathers instead of guns to tickle the amygdala. This is my new strategy. Sorry, Dr. Beth, I'm a little goofy like you are, but yeah, I don't know the answers, but that's, I'm going to tickle my amygdala and see if I can come up with any good ones.
I love that. I love that. I love that, Ariel. And I'm so glad you're okay. And I'm so glad you're back from your surgery. And I'm just sending you so much love. And I want to connect tonight. So I want to hear more about, you've been doing some really cool things. So don't go away. So let's go around the room. Erica, what's your takeaway? What do you want to leave us with?
I was just going to say to Ariel, Ho'oponopono, you know, like that's the forgiveness prayer kind of thing. Like I was just hearing about that from somebody else, like, and reminded of you teaching that to me first. The Ho'oponopono, like I forgive you, I love you, and something else, something like that. So you know, a lot of forgiveness and a lot of love in this time. So that's all I'm saying.
Sweet.
And if I was in that situation where I would be a director, distractor, delegator, I would do all those things. I would be like all 5 Ds. I'd be like delay, distracted, direct, you know, that's what my gifts. Okay.
And anytime we're seeing it in bullying, in when anybody's getting hurt? How can we bring the love and all those 5 Ds? Doyle, thanks for putting that in the chat.
You bet.
Where are you, Doyle? What would you like to leave us with?
I think it's important to be generous in our conversations and to try and stay at the 50,000 foot level where we're saying things everybody can agree with. You know, we all want there to be, you know, a prosperous country. We all want for everyone to be able to, you know, have a living and have a standard of living that raises everything up for everybody. So by not telling people they're wrong, or if they're idiots, or, you know, you're listening to the wrong TV station, to find those commonalities that we have. So that in my business, I have both Republicans and Democrats come in. They always say, don't talk politics or religion. And well, I talk both because I go to that 50,000 foot level. Whether Republican or Democrat, if they want to talk politics, I have a standard answer. It's broken. It's not working. And 201, they all agree. I don't try and tell them how to fix it, because that's, you know, that's getting down into the weeds. So, you know, stay at that high level.
Find some place where we can all meet. I love it, Doyle. Cecilia?
Well, as what I was sharing earlier, my way the takeaway, this just confirms to continue developing my avatar, which is to accept everyone, try to work with everyone, find opportunities. So I really, you know, kind of stuff trying to look for the opportunities to share and just, you know, help somebody else, but help me as well, because who knows, any day, any given moment, I might need to have a conversation with somebody to encourage or help someone get through something. So good feedback to continue with that charge.
Go girl, go. Eric?
Yeah, I'm just gonna chime in on something Doyle said. He said the system's broken. It's actually not broken. It's actually working the way the system wants it to work.
Yeah, that's right.
That doesn't make it right. It doesn't be operating there, but it's not broken. People who've actually created it don't think it's broken. It doesn't need fixing for that. So I just love the passion and the wisdom and the different perspectives that we all share, because none of us have the answer, but I love that we're having this conversation. And I agree with what Cecilia said. It starts with us. Each one of us has to do something, and it starts with talking about it and talking about it with as many people as we can. So I do have hope, but you just never know until you actually see things change, you know. But I'm still going to be positive. I'm still going to have these conversations, and I'm going to still see the good in people. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
That's your story, and you're sticking with it.
That's right.
Dad, what's your takeaway?
I would say one, be the model of whatever change you aspire to happen. Look for opportunities, as Cecilia said a while ago, look for opportunities that come our way. Be bold in our willingness to stand up for right. That's really important. And on a humorous side, if I could digress just for a quick second, I'm dying to know where old Melanie's been, because she's been in a car, she's been in and out of buildings. I want to know, where in the world do you live, and where all have you been? You've done your grocery shopping and whatever else.
I'm so sorry. I had a
Sorry, I
doctor's
just had to say
appointment. I had to take my daughter somewhere, so I had a doctor's appointment, came home, and then I had to take my daughter somewhere, and now I'm home, finally sitting.
I'm amazed that you did this all while, because I was thinking, I don't know if I could have this be on Zoom and do all she did. I was like, oh my word. But I'm open.
That's just Erica folding her clothes. I wonder if she's done all of her housework.
I loved it, Melanie, when your hands were like this and you're going down the road, and I'm like, ah.
Right.
I'm pretty good at driving
Okay.
with my knee. I know it's not right though.
I know, I love it. Okay, Melanie, what would you like to leave us with? What would you like to leave us with, other than a fun, humorous moment? Thank you for that.
Hope. I mean, I believe that that we can raise the vibration. I believe in that. I believe in the energy. So as long as we start with ourselves, we're brave. I think we need a lot more bravery. I think people need to speak up and speak out, and it's happening more and more. And I think it's a beautiful thing. Like, you know, talking about all the Black Lives Matter and all of that, and then all around the world. Oh my gosh, it brings, like, just hearing about it makes me teary. Thinking about it, like all the people who stood up. Now that's the most important thing. Stand up for what's right. And I don't know, other than that, I have no clue how to fix anything.
Well, I've heard stand up for what's right. What I find right to be the booby prize sometimes. So my invitation is that we stand up for love and
I like
love
that
and
better.
listening. Stand up for love. And my we're on week 3 right now. This is supposed to happen week 2 and week 4. And we have 5 weeks this month. I'm wondering if you guys are okay if we skip next week and go to the 5th week, and then we'll be back into 2nd and 4th. But for those of you that have signed up, I can't promise you're not going to get a reminder next Friday, because I have an automatic thing set up. So I'll see if I can get something worked out with my tech team, but I can't promise that they'll have it set up. But how many can do the 5th week instead of the 4th week, so that we can go every other week?
Yes.
Okay. All
So
right,
you
let's
mean,
do
like,
that.
We're changing our calendar to be the 3rd and the 5th week
Just for this month,
for
even though you're probably
okay
just for April.
for April.
Just for
Okay.
April. And then as we move into May, we'll be back into every other week again, 2nd and the 4th. And okay, so I'll make that happen. Invite other people to come. I actually had I've had people that have come and they've given me a little bit of feedback. They thought this was just about black white issues. And remember that we sent out last time that list, and we were gonna each of us take one of those things, and there's one on LGBTQ, there's one on ageism. And what I would love for us to do next time, unless we've had another million shootings, and I feel like we just need to be where we are in the world, I'd like for us to go back to that, unless somebody has another idea.
The microaggressions.
The microaggressions, yes. And I've watched the movie about the 5 kids that were in New York that were put in jail. That was so freaking disturbing, and stayed in jail for 15 years. If you haven't seen that one, it's on Netflix. It's something that really we all need to see it. It's disturbing as all get out, and we need to see it. And there's several things that are on Netflix right now. I invite all of us to just keep looking at what's there, that we can keep learning and keep bringing back to the group, and keep sharing our text messages with each other, and keep sharing what we're seeing. So that's my takeaway. And I'm just so grateful to have people that are willing to show up and have this conversation with me. And this is I'm passionate about making a change. And Dad, when you say who in the world has something to say, I would put my name at the top of that list. Like, I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know when, but my eyes are wide open, and I'm willing to jump in wherever I need to jump in.
Yeah.
So I'd put my name at the top of that list. Okay, anybody else have anything else to say? We're right at 6:02 or 4:02 if you're in California.
Oh, 7:02.
or 7:02 if you're in.
I'm out.
All right, everybody.
Enjoyed it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Mwah.
everybody.
Peace
Have a good
out.
weekend.
Lots of love to
See
you
you next
all.
time.
Thank you.
Bye.